But I must be going.
Why?
Because I'm following a white rabbit.
Hey, this is Michelle with Relationships Through the Looking Glass. And before we get started, I just want to give you guys a heads up. There are spoiler alerts in the next few minutes about chapters 1 through 3. So if you haven't listened to chapter 1, 2, and 3, stop where you're at right now. Go back and listen because there are spoiler alerts. And try to guess what Alice does in her village. We have hinted multiple times that the individuals in her village depend on her. But there's something very specific that Alice does. And I'm thinking that the artwork for today's episode might clue you in. So again, spoiler alerts ahead. If you haven't listened to chapters 1, 2, and 3, go ahead and stop where you're at and go back. But if you have, or you just don't care, let's keep it moving. So this is day 5, right? It's day 5 of this challenge. 5 days in. Today's going to be a recap of the series. How funny. It's a series. I have a series. But so we've gone through 3 chapters of Alice's journey. And here are some fun Easter eggs or little nuggets for you to kind of look out for as we continue on. So in each episode, I have at least 2 previous cast. I have a cast. I have a series and a cast. But I have previous guest hosts in each episode, at least 2 in each episode. So the key is to listen up to see if you can determine who they are. My co-hosts are also represented by characters in the episode that you hear, and just to give you kind of a head count so far, as in what guests have shown up. So I'm not going to tell you in what episode, and I'm not going to give any other hints other than just who's shown up so far. So we've had Victor from the Liquor Talk podcast. We've had Daryl from All Things Black podcast. We've had Chris from Kiss and Chris Coaching, who was a guest on the podcast. I think those are the 3 so far who've shown up in the episodes. And we've also had both co-hosts have shown up in the episodes. So when you're listening, try to figure out what character is the host, previous host that we've had. So that's just a fun way to kind of connect to and make sure you're listening really well. Now, the last 3 episodes, we saw Alice transition from kind of being stuck in a place she didn't want to be to standing up and saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to head home, to kind of self-doubting herself and locking herself up in a tower. Then kind of forming an alliance to move forward again. So even in the last 3 episodes, it's kind of been a seesaw, teeter-totter back and forth with what she wants to do and how she's going to make it happen. And that's kind of how life is, right? Like, one day you might wake up like you're on top of the world, and then the next day you wake up, you don't even want to get out of the bed. So being able to utilize actual human behaviors within the characters is something that I'm enjoying as well. If anybody who's done their homework knows psychology, I'm kind of a lifelong student of psychology and all things behaviors. So I'm excited to be able to kind of intertwine some things in there. And speaking of intertwined, the topics that we have discussed in all of the episodes for season 2 will also be intertwined in the storyline. So there's a lot of stuff to listen out for. You have previous guest, you have the co-host, you have lessons and episode topics all intertwined in the storyline. I want to just say how ecstatic this whole experience has been. Now, granted, it's only been 5 days. And I will say that it is a lot of work. It is. Now, would I deter anybody from wanting to do the next cycle of this challenge? Absolutely not. I find that this challenge not only allows you to connect to more individuals because you're cross-pollinating with the other participants in their base, but you also can extend your arm into the depths of your own creativity. Like, there's literally no rules other than every day you put out content. So if you listen to any of our episodes, it's so interesting to see how we're all so different, but we're all creatives in putting out content. So when you get a notification from the Creators of Color Challenge, every notification, you know it's going to be a different flavor, a different experience. So I think that's unique in itself, to just explain how creativity is not a one-size-fits-all. You're learning something, you're becoming aware of something, you're being entertained, and it all fits. So I do want to just do shout outs to my other participants who were on this journey with me. Drew, Daryl, Jen, Levi, both of the Seans. Like, wow, we're doing it. We're doing it. And to think that how it started off, if you guys saw what was going on behind the scenes, you would be like, what? Are you guys going to be able to pull this off? And we're pulling it off rather successfully at that. So that just goes to show you, when you have a group of people who are determined and focused, you can get things done. So yeah, I'm very ecstatic to be in this challenge, and I would definitely recommend it for anybody who might be thinking about it when the cycle comes back around for the new group. And speaking of behind the scenes, I was able to share a behind the scene creation phase of when I designed the character Alice. And that was from a suggestion from Nick from the Forbidden Fruit podcast. So shout out to Nick. And you guys definitely check out his podcast. Another amazing creative who is putting out content to educate and allow people to feel inclusive through different varieties of podcast and storytelling. So definitely check his podcast out. But I was able to do a quick time-lapse video of how I designed Alice, and I thought that was so neat that people actually were like, yeah, I would watch you design a character, because I never thought that would be something anybody would want to see. So again, this challenge has allowed me to kind of showcase different artistic abilities that I have that have nothing to do with podcasting, and pull them in to the podcast realm, if you will. So yeah, I've been designing characters for a couple years now, and it's definitely something that I enjoy doing. And yeah, to be able to allow others in the podcast depths to see it makes me ecstatic. So yeah, if you haven't, it's on the Instagram page, the podcast Instagram page through the Looking Glass, and on the Creators of Color podcast page. So definitely, if you haven't, go ahead and like that IG page as well, because you'll see all the participants in different areas of their creation process as we get through the next 25 days. So 5 days in, 25 more to go. Now, the parts that you have been waiting for. Some little tidbits of what's to come for Alice. So when we left Alice, she had formed an alliance with a fairy, Butterfly, and she's actually become acquaintances, I guess you could say, with the White Rabbit. The first 2 episodes, there was a lot of running and chasing of that rabbit, but that 3rd episode, they've actually communicated and decided to go forward together in a partnership and not a runner-chaser dynamic. So when we left them, they had just walked up on a village. And we're about to go down and investigate. I will tell you the following guest podcast host will be in the next 3 episodes. We'll have Darius from What the Shit podcast, Chris from Blurred's Eye View podcast, Rome from No ID podcast, and I'm trying to think. One more, and I'm trying to think. I'm thinking in my storyline as I'm talking. Rodriguez Maxwell from Journey to the Throne podcast. So those guests will be in there, and there'll be some reoccurrence of previous guest characters that show up too in the next podcast. So episodes. So basically, just because somebody makes an appearance in one episode does not mean you won't hear or see them again as we move on within the next 25 days. Every 3 episodes, we'll have a break where I do a recap, tell you what we looked at and where we're going, and it kind of gives my creative mind a break too from having to push this content so quickly. So, Alice has started her journey. She's made the intention to get home. She's formed an alliance, and they're about to go into another phase. And that's pretty much where we're at. So if you haven't listened yet, go ahead and check out chapters 1, 2, and 3. I try to keep the episodes 10 minutes, and I've been pretty consistent with that because I want it to give you just enough to engage that part of your brain to get you thinking, but not too much to overload you, right? So again, using the whole psychology of it all. So hopefully you're enjoying it as much as I am creating this. Hopefully you are able to close your eyes and use your other senses to make it a multi-sensual experience. And, sensual. I don't think that's the word I want to use. A multi-senses experience. That's so weird. Ew. And that you're having fun, and I look forward to the next 3 episodes before we recap again in the next 25 days. So thanks for listening. Hope this doesn't seem like rambling, but this satisfies my day 5. So you guys take care, stay safe, and be well.